talking about why cells stay small, because it lets them get stuff in and out. They don't drown in their own waste, and they don't starve. So now we're going to talk about you being organized, because believe it or not, you are. You are better organized than you think you are. You and a carrot and a bacteria and a blue whale. Oh, I'll shut up and let you write for a second.
I can't see that.
Oh, molecular. What does that mean? It means little chemicals. It means individual chemical pieces. So even the simplest thing, the simplest thing, a single-celled organism can still organize chemicals. So it can still pull in sugar and send it to specific parts of the cell. It can still pull together wastes and put them in a specific part of the cell. Something like you're way more organized than that, because your body right now is sending all the sugar to a specific place. It's sending red blood cells carrying what? What do red blood cells carry? If you're low on red blood cells, you find that you're very weak, you get tired easily, you get out of breath easily. Red blood cells carry oxygen, to all the cells in your body, because they all need oxygen. So your body is putting oxygen onto red blood cells and sending those to cells that need it. It's doing all these complicated things. It's sending lymph cells, immune cells to various parts of your body. So you're very, very, very well organized in ways you don't even know. Now, we'll talk, what does multicellular mean? Multi means how many? More than one. Yeah, more than one. So a multicellular organism is a living thing with more than one cell. Okay? It's a living thing with more than one cell. That could be you, it could be an earthworm, it could be a grasshopper, it could be a maple tree, it could be a little tiny piece of duckweed floating on the top of a pond, those little tiny green specks in the water. It could be a fish, it could be anything like that. It could be a mushroom, big piece of seaweed. Those are all multicellular organisms. Question?
Do you have different color palette?
I have this yellow one that you can use. If I don't unplug this. Oh, please don't bump it, please don't bump it. I've already broken it a few times. So any of those things are the only things that are unicellular, one-celled, single-celled, are things like bacteria. So bacteria, some algae are unicellular, but most of the things that we talk about, there's a lot of multicellular life. Okay. Wait. Okay, so a nice multicellular organism such as yourself, you're organized in even more complicated ways. So we can take a bunch of cells that have the same job, they have the same function. They are specialized. Wait, should I shut up and let you copy the words first? Okay, let me do that. Sorry. I'll read it. Cells are grouped by function into tissues, muscle tissue, fat tissue, connective tissue, etc. Tissues are grouped with other tissues to form organs, heart, lungs, brain. Organs are grouped together to form systems, circulatory, respiratory, immune. A combination of organ systems is an organism, a living thing. So, this only applies to multicellular things. Why? Because we're saying cells, plural, more than one cell. So in multicellular organisms, very often their cells are specialized. And if we remember what the word specialized meant, let me get rid of these. Cut. 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 Their cells are specialized. They have specific jobs to do.
Don't we already have that in our notes?
Probably.
So do I have to
Prob-
write that down as well?
Yeah, only if you can't remember it from the other part of your notes. That's up to you. So when we have cells that are specialized, they have special jobs. They get grouped in the body by job. So the muscles in your arm, that's a collection of muscle cells, and muscle cells only have one job. This is like somebody who works in a factory and stamps widgets all day. All muscle cells do is expand, contract, expand, contract, expand, contract. They can't pump oxygen. They can't make new bone marrow cells. They can't transmit electrical signals. They can only do one thing. They do it really, really well. Expand, contract, expand, contract, expand, contract. Gets kind of boring. But they're specialized. They're very specialized. Your brain is largely a collection of specialized cells called neurons. They send signals. That's all they do. Send a signal, send a signal. The muscles in your brain can't expand, contract. They can't do what your muscle cells do. They just send a signal, send a signal, send a signal. So we take a bunch of cells that have the same job, and they're together, and they form tissue. So the muscle in your arm is muscle tissue. There's another really important muscle that you are expanding and contracting right now. And I know that you are, because if you weren't, you'd be on the floor and you'd be a really nasty shade of blue-gray. Your heart. Your heart's a big muscle. So we group these cells by function into tissue. So we have muscle tissue in the arm. Actually, I should say, your heart's a collection of different kinds of tissue. So, you know, your bicep in your arm, that's just muscle tissue. Just muscle tissue. But we can put together some tissues that have different kinds of jobs and create an organ. And that's the way it works in multicellular organisms. So your heart is muscle tissue, connective tissue, which is things like ligaments. It's vascular tissue, which is the kind of thing like blood vessels. It's got fatty tissue. Your heart actually does have some fat in and around it. And those kinds of tissues make up an organ. Okay. Well, if we take a bunch of organs and we put them together, they can accomplish some larger task. This is kind of like a team that gets something done. So we've got a team of organs that work to do something. Your heart is part of what system? What organ system? Respiratory, circulatory, immune? Circulatory. Circulatory system. It circulates blood through the body. So the circulatory system would include your heart. It includes all the blood vessels in your body. It actually does include your lungs, because those function, they're sort of part of the respiratory and circulatory system. There's some overlap. You know, so all those things that work to move blood around your body are part of the circulatory system. Your immune system, we talk about that one a lot. Your spleen and your pancreas and all the lymph nodes in your body. If you've ever been to the doctor and they do this, what are they doing? No? No, you go in sick, you got a fever, you got a sore throat. First thing they're going to do, you're checking for swollen lymph nodes. Because your lymph nodes are part of your immune system. They end up collecting fluid. Now, I mean, they may take your pulse, but usually these days they take that with a machine, or they take it in your arm with the stethoscope. But here they're usually checking for swollen lymph nodes. Okay, you and a maple tree and a blue whale and an earthworm and a carrot and a tomato and a banana and a fruit fly are just a collection of systems. No, we tend to think we're a little bit more than that, and you are. But biologically, at the basis of it, any living thing is just a combination of organ systems, any multicellular thing. And organism is a term we use a lot. It just means a living thing. Okay? So an organism is a living thing, and you're a collection of organ systems. You little multicellular organisms, such as yourselves. Energy use. All living things use energy. The process is metabolism. Energy is used to maintain cells, to grow, and to reproduce. Energy can come from the sun. Plants, algae, and some bacteria perform photosynthesis, or from eating other organisms, most bacteria, fungi, and animals. You guys hit on this when we talked about characteristics of living things, and most of you included something like eat on your list. So energy use, all that is eating. So we're talking now about how living things get their energy. How many of you have heard the term metabolism used? Okay, how do we usually use it?
Someone has a high metabolism.
Yeah, oh man, my friend Katie's got a really fast metabolism. She could live on ice cream and she still weighs 105 pounds and she's 5'10". Rat. I got a really slow metabolism. Man, I look at something, I gain weight. Okay. You're getting energy by eating. That's what eating is for. I mean, food tastes really good. I really like food, but really at the base of it, you're just getting energy. We could give you like pellets of people chow, and it wouldn't taste like anything, but if you got the right number of calories, you'd be just fine, right? Mix of nutrients. This is what we do with dogs for the most part. You're getting energy through eating your food. Metabolism is actually it's all the chemical processes that go on in your body. So metabolism is the sum of all chemical processes in an organism. It's the sum of all chemical processes in an organism. What does sum mean? We talk about this in math.
The total, like the answer.
Total, when we add things up. Yeah. So if we add up all the chemical processes that your body is performing, that's your metabolism. Your body is performing a whole bunch of chemical processes. So the food you ate at lunch, your body's breaking that apart into simple little pieces so the cells can use it for energy. Because getting food is all about getting energy. That's all it is. You're just getting energy. You have to have energy in order to do any of these things. Maintain your cells, grow, or reproduce. What happens if you stop eating? Eventually you die. But before you die, what happens? Well, you get real hungry. You get sick. So, do you guys cover World War II stuff in freshman year in social studies? Okay. So you're familiar with World War II. Holland was occupied by the Nazis, eventually liberated, obviously at the end of the war. And I think it was the winter of 1945, like winter of 1944-45, so very near the end of the war. There was no food. They called it the starving winter. People were reduced to eating things that people do not normally eat. You can eat bugs and earthworms and rats and, tulip bulbs, which are poisonous, but people ate them because when you're starving, you kind of throw out any concerns about what looks good. It's just about getting calories in, and your body gets you past the revulsion. So this was a horrible thing that the people of Holland experienced. But it actually gave us some data on what happens to people when they are starved, when they get down to the point of near starvation. So a couple things that we know happen. Number one, your body doesn't maintain and rebuild cells. So if you get a cut on your arm, what happens to it? You get a scab, then what happens?
Get that back in.
Well, hopefully not, assuming everything goes well. So you get a scab, then what?
Heals.
It heals. My daughter's currently fascinated by that point when you can pull off the scab and there's just clean skin under it. It is kind of cool, actually. You know, just new skin forms underneath that scab. How does that happen?
Cells die.
Well, cells reproduce and divide. Those skin cells reproduce and divide and cover up where that cut was. Well, guess what? If you're not getting enough calories, your body can't heal things anymore. At a certain point, when you're not getting enough calories, you can't heal wounds. You can't heal a gash, a scrape, a scratch, anything. If you're not getting enough calories, your body doesn't have enough energy to reproduce extra cells. So your wounds don't heal very well. This is often a problem with very elderly people, because a lot of times elderly people, their food intake really drops off. Like my grandma for the last 3 years of her life lived on a bag of microwave popcorn a day. I love microwave popcorn, but that was like all she was eating, you know. I mean, so her nutrition was not great. And she wasn't getting a whole lot of calories. She wasn't real active. But at that point, people don't heal wounds very well. People who went through the Dutch starving winter as children, their adult height was lower than we would have expected otherwise. Because at some point in their childhood, their body said, whoa, 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 we don't need to add any more body to feed here. We can barely feed the body we have. You know, you're 4'9", let's just hold you right there. Because if you shoot up to 5'6", you have more body you have to provide calories for. You have more cells you have to feed. And so the body limits growth if you're not getting enough energy. Reproduction. You get down to that starvation point, the body shuts off reproductive functions. Women stop their periods. Males stop producing sperm. Because the body basically says, look, you're barely surviving here. We can't expend any energy on something that's not completely necessary. That is not completely necessary. And the body calls a halt, pulls out the stops, because the body isn't getting enough energy to maintain basic functions. So getting enough energy is important. Now, how do you get energy? Well, you got two ways. Any of you go out at lunchtime and stand in the sun and turn green?
No.
No?
On occasion.
Well, I think none of you are photosynthesizing. So there are two ways you can get energy. You can make it yourself or you can take it from someone else. And if you can make it yourself, you're getting energy from the sun, plants, algae, and some bacteria. And that's important. There are three kinds of things that can photosynthesize. Plants, algae, some bacteria. That means they have chemicals in their body and they can make sugar out of sunlight and CO2. It's kind of a miracle. It's really cool. It's also really nice for us because they burp out oxygen and we use oxygen. So, woohoo! If you can't make your own energy, you have to eat somebody who does. You're stealing energy from plants.
They ate people.
No. Well, you can, but there are all kinds of ramifications of that, both moral, philosophical, and medical. You have to eat something else that made its own energy or ate something that did. You can't make your own energy. So you have to either eat plants or eat other animals because you can't make your own energy. So if you had a hamburger at lunch today, you had some plants, the bun was wheat, and you had some more plants actually in the burger because there's soy and beef. And then you had some animal in there. You had some ground up cow in there. So because you can't make your own energy, you have to take it from someone else. Most bacteria and fungus and animals cannot make their own food. So have you ever eaten a mushroom? Okay, I like them on my pizza. I really like mushroom and black olive pizza. That's my favorite combination. You have a lot in common with a mushroom. And not just because you're a fun guy. I like that one. It's my favorite. I wait all year for that. I got more. There's more where that came from, folks. Yeah, fungi can't make their own energy either. They break down dead stuff in the forest. Mold growing on a loaf of bread in your refrigerator is breaking down the bread. They can't make their own energy either. They're stealing it from the bread. Fungus growing out of trees in the woods are breaking down the tree for food. They're eating the tree. They can't photosynthesize. So all living things use energy, all of them. Homeostasis. All living things maintain stable internal conditions. Single cells control H2O content. Multicellular organisms, such as yourselves, have multiple systems for maintaining homeostasis. They control water balance. They control temperature. Okay. Let's just look at the word homeostasis. I see two main parts. How about you? Think in terms of syllables. They're not quite exactly syllables, but I think this homeo looks like one part and stasis looks like another. So homo or homeo, what does that refer to? What does that refer to? Homogenized milk. Homozygous genetic thing. No? Homo? We missed recording all of that. So, homeo or homo refers to being the same. Stay refers to not moving, like stable and stationary and stay. Okay. The goal of all living things is just to have a nice smooth road. Unchanging conditions. Okay? Your body would be happiest if the temperature outside of it never changed and the water balance inside it never changed. Just totally stable. And metaphorically, we're happiest if there are no great shocks or surprises or traumas, and we never get too hot, and we never get too cold, and we never get too thirsty, and we never get too hungry, and everything is just perfect. Anyway. If you're a single-celled organism, so let's remember our little bacteria here. There's our little bacteria. They can't control a whole lot. Okay? So about the only thing that a little tiny bacteria like this can control is the amount of water that ends up in that cell. Have you ever filled a water balloon? Have you overfilled a water balloon? It has burst on you. If this bacterial cell gets too much water in it, guess what will happen? Pops like a water balloon. Because really that's all cells are, is little water balloons. I mean, they're fancy water balloons, but they're water balloons. You're a bunch of water balloons all glued together. Don't you feel special now? So this little single-celled organism, the only thing it can do is if there's too much water, it has ways of pumping water out. It can basically spit water out. It doesn't have a mouth. So this is a metaphor. It's not an exact representation of what happens. But these little bacterial cells can get rid of extra water. What do you think happens if they get too hot?
Sweat.
Well, do they have sweat glands?
No, but they kick it out.
They can't sweat if they get too hot.
Probably not.
They just die. Why do you have to cook hamburger to 160 degrees?
So it cooks.
So it kills bacteria.
Um,
Because if you get things too hot for bacteria, they just die.
so you can't like eat raw hamburger meat.
That's a whole other conversation. Single-celled organisms like this can just control water balance. They cannot control their temperature. A fine multicellular organism, such as yourself, has ways of controlling your water balance and your temperature. And sometimes they're tied together. So if you go out on a 90-degree day and you stand there in the heat, in the sun, what starts to happen? You sweat. Why do you sweat? But why does sweating help? Gets rid of what? Nah.
It makes
The water in the body.
water good.
Yeah, but maybe you need that water. It's really hot.
Yeah, but you're
extract water
Well, yeah, but you want to conserve water when you're hot. Why would you sweat when you're hot?
because it's hot out.
This is a circular argument.
So
It cools you off.
So I was getting that.
It cools you off. As that sweat evaporates from your skin, it cools your skin off. Yeah.
How much?
Now, if it doesn't evaporate, it doesn't help. So if it's real muggy, sweating doesn't help a whole lot. But yeah, sweating is a mechanism you have for your body cooling off. Now, what happens if you go out in the freezing cold in just a t-shirt and shorts?
You won't sweat.
You won't sweat for sure. Other things start to happen though.
Your toes start to
You
fall.
start to shiver.
Yeah.
You get little goose pimples on your arm while your fur stands up on end.
Uh-huh.
It is fur, and that is actually what's happening. Your body is trying to make a layer of air between you and the outside by raising up your fur. Dogs and wolves when they're cold, foxes, cats do the same thing. They fluff up when they're cold. Have you ever seen barn cats sitting around in the winter? They're all fluffy and puffy and sitting there. Yeah, because it's involuntary. You don't try to do that. You don't try to get goosebumps, do you? You can't help it. Because your body is sending signals that say, okay, this works to keep me warm. Raise the hairs. Now, you also have ways to control your water balance. If you aren't getting enough water, what happens? When you get thirsty, you get dehydrated. What are some of the first signs of dehydration? How many of you have been dehydrated? Okay. What's one of the first signs of dehydration? Oh, that's way down the road. That's way down the road. Your body temperature starts to go up because you don't have enough water to cool you off anymore. Sometimes, have you been so hot that you got to the point where you stopped sweating?
I've been so hot where I started getting cold.
Really, that's a very bad sign. Yeah, I've been there too. That's not good. Stop sweating. Stop peeing. Because your body is doing what? Holding on to every drop of moisture it's got. No, let's not get rid of that. We might need it. Okay, I'll see you tomorrow. There will be a recall quiz.